You're on.
All right, we're rolling. All right, so we are back in open session. So we're going to go on to the next agenda item, which is B1 of the 9 policy manual amendments moved by Mr. Malaga. The first one is the EPCC amendment. Is there a second? Second. Mr. Malaga, I'll just leave up the motion.
So I do think, so I'm going to make this very easy for everyone in the interest of time and common sense. I did write reasonings for all of them. I would hope that all of the members, especially those opposed, I will just remind everyone, the EPCC, the SIC, the Audit Committee, the Chair, the Executive Director, Debbie Mason, who is our contracted nonprofit board consultant, have all endorsed these motions. As Ms. Harlow stated, she did have a slight amendment to one of my motions, which I promptly gave notice to and swapped it out. That was a very reasonable request, and it was an additional barrier to prevent financial malfeasance, so I was more than happy to put that in. But I'm not going to give additional reasonings for anything. It's already been stated in the document. I would be at the discretion to entertain any questions regarding any motion. Otherwise, I think we're okay going to a vote. These are very common sense. They should be unanimous. I do suspect I know how this is going to go vote-wise, but fingers and toes crossed, pins and needles. But yeah, that's where I'll leave it. For all of them moving forward, not just this one, but for the rest moving forward.
I have a request for information to Mr. Malagon in a potential amendment, but it depends on the length of information. Considering there are certain qualifications listed here, if any member of the EPCC currently does not meet these qualifications, would they be immediately removed from the EPCC?
I mean, that would be up to the chair, I suppose. I suppose anyone could make a motion to remove people after the fact. I don't see how it would immediately apply. They have been elected already. This is more of a provision for future EPCC members. Although any board member could make a motion at any time to remove what they believe to be unqualified people. Although it is, and I will just note that it is interesting that it is understood that there's at least one unqualified member on the EPCC. I'll just leave it at that.
I'd like to ask if Mr. Malagon would be friendly to this amendment, which would be a proviso.
Sorry, is Ms. Harless requesting a friendly amendment? I was told that those didn't exist.
It's not in order. It's
Holy
a
shit!
regular.
This whole meeting has just gone.
I know. I just would like to know
No, please, I'm kidding.
perspective, which would be a proviso that these qualifications would go into effect as the size of the committee may be reduced or vacancies created or vacancies happen or something. Vacancies occur.
When you say that, what exactly are you trying to accomplish? I'm confused,
Like,
by the way.
say tomorrow we change the size of the EPCC from 5 to 3 and made decisions on who that would be. That's when these qualifications.
So here's, I mean,
I'm asking his opinion.
I'm not opposed to that. Here's how I see it. So quite literally, everyone has seen Ms. Mason's report because it was leaked by a Mason's member. So at this point, I mean, she recommended a small EPCC going back to 3. If that's the case, I mean, we could just have new elections and then go from there, and then the board could decide who they determine to be qualified and not qualified based on their professional acumen. So if the proviso would do that, I don't. Could you read that one more time? I'm sorry.
Actually, I would like to just simplify it, and this would allow future motions in the future. These qualifications go into effect as vacancies occur.
If you would ask my ruling, I would rule that whoever's in the EPCC currently would still be in the EPCC currently because they're elected that role, regardless of any qualifications.
Then I would. That's your ruling. I would.
Yeah, so that's what I was asking. So if that's the chair's ruling, that's fine. So if someone were to make a motion to reduce the scope of EPCC back to 3 members, or to remove certain members, then that's their prerogative to make that motion.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't want anyone automatically removed.
No, yeah, of course, that was not my intention.
Okay, thank you.
I
I would speak against this proposal. I believe, again, similar to previous items I brought up, I think this is intended as a means to kind of weaponize the composition. We've already seen how this committee has been politicized. We had a vacancy occur in this committee, and immediately following that election, we saw the people who were not elected in that election bring a motion to add seats for themselves, which immediately swayed the majority of the committee in the opposite direction. We saw that carry out actions that were, I believe, pledged not to be done in the event of certain other elections in the party. And we saw these things brought and introduced under the cover of darkness. The committee was immediately following the failure to get elected. Was motioned via email ballot to expand the size. And then within minutes of that motion closing, we saw a proposal to appoint 2 specific individuals attempting to block any discussion or any opportunity for motions to be brought for other individuals. And I think we should have no reasonable expectation that these measures and these qualifications, which were previously raised, Mr. Malaga, I believe, in a previous meeting, specifically attempting to impugn those who are running against the committee, running against him for that committee vacancy. And the board chose to elect other people before him, and we saw how that was handled through a politicized response. So this additionally, besides just adding these qualifications, also seeks to greatly empower and expand the authority of the committee to basically give them powers superior to the LNC and the chair, putting them in between any execution of such decisions by the consideration to approve all of these contracts. So I just don't think it's appropriate for us to be politicizing this as we've seen done, and the expansion of authorities is, I think, an indication of the intent of this proposal, along with several other subsequent proposals in the policy manual, as I mentioned earlier. Further build upon this, I think further remove accountability from the LNC and instill it into a small number of individuals who I think are going to be very carefully voted by this narrow majority of them.
Mr. Morton, and then Mr. Thompson, and Ms. Scavenge, and Ms. Carlos, Malaga, Brett Paff.
I thought you were speaking.
Impressive.
I'm
impressed you remember, you got that order down, that's cool. Okay.
We all need like a red string that we just hold on to.
Right.
The talking stick.
I don't want to speculate about the intention of this because the ostensible intent looks really good. The idea of qualified people on this committee is critical. We really don't want people who aren't able to do this to be there. I do, however, echo Mr. Chatterton's concerns about how this could be used to get power not only from the board, also from the chair, also in general. This is a little bit like passing a bill to stop a hurricane. To say the committee shall be composed of qualified individuals, you can actually let me explain this better. It should say the LNC should take care to use due diligence in ensuring that the people elected to this board are qualified. Because that's our job, right? We elect people to this board. We decide this. So by saying, hey,
Not say that.
It literally
That's what
says
it
that.
says.
no, it says,
English is my second language, and I can read. My
well, let
God.
me help you with this. It's really
No,
simple.
please.
So notice, see how it says the EPCC shall be comprised only of qualified members of the LNC.
And who appoints the
Guys,
EPCC?
only one person talks, Mr. Martin speaking, and then we'll go in order.
Apologies, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The issue is that whether or not the EPCC shall or will be actually composed of competent, qualified members is a question that depends on our judgment and our ongoing approval. I know that's kind of obvious, but look, when you say it shall be comprised, you're leaving the door open for any LNC, if our LNC composition changes, say the Mises Caucus takes over, right? They can, I understand that. Hold your horses.
I'm sorry, as a point of order, can I have the secretary put the policy manual on the screen so she can see who elects the EPCC?
Hold your horses. You're not understanding you're not understanding.
Because apparently Mr. Martin doesn't understand who elects the EPCC.
Yeah, well aware. Because
This will actually take up a lot.
like whatever he's out of order. I don't want to yell over.
As a point of order, could the secretary please do
Can we
that?
call the member to order?
Because I'd like to point at it.
Can we call the member to order? Thank you. So what the problem is that if the LNC changes its composition and we've elected people to this committee, this could be used to fine tune that committee or pick that committee by using removals based on qualifications. If I don't agree with Mr. Malagon's idea of what is qualified, and I manage to supply someone else on this committee who
Mr. Chair,
takes his
point of
place-
order. I'm sorry. This is,
Your
it's,
point of order.
it's,
An interruption.
no, this is, it's in the motion itself. It's as if Mr. Martin didn't read the motions. It will only, the word qualified in quotes for these purposes shall be defined as, I've defined what qualified means.
It's very
talking in
subjective.
circles.
I understand, but everybody's gonna have their turn to debate, and it's all gonna come full circle.
I would have been done already.
And I just,
I doubt it.
and even
Oh,
if
yeah.
we disagree with our colleagues on
Sure,
the board.
that's fine.
Our time to debate.
I'll close my remarks like this. Have you ever heard the expression that credentialism is a mental disorder? Because it is. Little slips of paper from the government or from state universities do not necessarily qualify someone. Experience usually does. We have to use good judgment when we try to decide whether or not someone is really qualified. So a better way to word this motion would be that the LNC should give special diligence to the qualifications of the people on this committee for future members. We're not trying to bind ourselves. We're not trying to, play power games. This is for the posterity of the future, right? So this should be written like instructions to a future LNC of what they should do, not a requirement of what we want this committee to be right now.
Mr. Thompson.
Lord.
Sorry.
Stuff took place since I had my thought. Okay, so earlier I voted with Mr. Chatterton against Mr. Malagon, balance the force. I guess I'd like to argue in favor of Malagon's motion against Chatterton. So the EPCC having authority to approve contracts is very beneficial, right? Like if they had that authority, say, a year ago, it would have been useful for us, right? It does make it empowers a committee, but it depowers the chair to an extent. The EPCC reviewing contracts after they've already been done doesn't help us as much if they're not even informed that a contract exists, right? So that part I think is useful. To Mr. Martin's point, I'm curious if it would satisfy your concern if the LNC appointed qualified members to the EPCC, right? That way we wouldn't be using it. I think probably your concerns are already been satisfied though by us saying that we're not going to use it against existing members.
Yeah.
But I do understand your concern that we would use it, as a weapon. But if we don't use it as a weapon against people that are already on there, as has already been ruled, I'm not sure that would really be that big of a problem.
I just see future in fighting.
And we're not supposed to have cross-talk.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know, I'm sorry, this has been going on for some time.
I understand. I'm trying to-
Without being.
My apologies,
And I
Mr.
hope
Chair.
that we extend this in all directions. So,
Absolutely.
Ms. Jessica.
Okay, so I talked to Debbie Mason about the EPCC and the size and the composition for over an hour. And she's like, well, you don't have qualifications for an employment committee, It's like, no. And that was astonishing to her. This is not rocket science. You want to say it's going to be used against somebody, it could be, and half the things in the policy manual could be used against somebody if you put your mind to it. The second part of this is, well, let me go back a minute. The second part of this change about the EPCC shall review, approve. Okay. And Stephen can confirm this. Before Reno, the EPCC dealt with contractors as well as staff, correct? You were on the EPCC.
Yep.
Okay. After Reno, it was the former chair's opinion that the EPCC had no jurisdiction over contractors. Okay. What happened? Okay. I don't need to say it.
Freedom calls happened, I'll say.
If there had been EPCC oversight, because there's 3 or 5 people now looking at these contracts and helping Hannah with these contracts. And we're gonna be doing some other things with contracts. But the other part of that is, so in March, I moved to add this language, the language that's in black, that underneath the, first, the EPCC shall review and document all employment contracts for staff as well as contractors that provide services outside of vendors. That passed. To add it back in, so everybody's clear that the EPCC deals with contracts. Okay, now, anybody know why Adrian is adding those other words there?
Approved.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Agreements,
I know.
transactions, remunerations, or modifications.
I know why I added it.
Adrian, why did you add those words?
Because that's part of DC law. It's in the DC statute. All of the amendments that are made here for not just this provision, but all the other motions are either taken from a direct recommendation from the auditor or DC statute, which is what we're concerned with, right? This should not be rocket science, people. It really isn't.
Carlos, Malagon, Chatterton, Redknapp, Fox.
Okay, just to answer some objections from Mr. Martin. The chair isn't cut out. I think there's a general misunderstanding amongst the party. The chair is an ex officio member of all committees. Ex officio doesn't mean non-voting. He gets to vote on every committee. That's why me on the Convention Oversight Committee, it says non-voting ex officio to make it clear that I'm not a voting member. But the chair is not cut out of any votes on EPCC. He's just not required to attend, and it's not counted in quorum if he doesn't attend. As far as something with balances of power, I would hope we start to get away from caucus talk of this one or this one taking over or whatever it might be. This is the policy manual. The reality is it can always be amended. I mean, we're amending it now. I mean, the policy manual gets amended every meeting. It is, as the chair said before, a living document. Now, if you don't like the language, it's fine, vote against it. Just understand that if some group gets in quote unquote power, they can rewrite the whole thing if they want.
They can put unqualified members if they so choose.
Mr. Malagon.
Well, I mean, it's just really funny that, well, so I'll say what I'm going to say and then I'll make the motion after this. So we're talking about politicization. Sorry. So of this whole motion, but the funny part is that it was politically inclined to put a particular member on the EPCC who has no experience with contracts, business development, HR, doesn't understand what KPIs, PIPs are, or anything, because it was a caucus thing. So it's just really funny that that was the argument initially given. And then we do have, out of the 5 members currently on the EPCC right now, we have 3 that are well-versed in all of these things and 2 that are not. And that's very, very clear, not just from the meetings themselves, but just looking at professional acumen. So I'm just going to point that out. And then I was outside while you were all in executive session, and the delegates of Michigan asked me to make a motion to not let Mr. Chatterton speak for the rest of the meeting. I don't know if that's an order, Mr. Chair, but as an at-large, I do adhere to the will of the entire Libertarian Party. So it was.
It is not an order at this time. You need to suspend the rules in order to consider that.
We'll talk tomorrow then. Great.
Mr. Redknapp, then Mr. Chatterton, then Mr. Fox.
I move to divide the question. And to consider these 2 paragraphs separately.
Second. There's a motion to divide in a second.
Yeah, to divide with the majority.
All right, so is there any discussion? Can you speak to your motion?
It's obvious
It's on the
that I think these are completely different. 2 paragraphs I think are completely different in their nature and what they intend to do, and one might be adopted and one rejected. I think the board should have the freedom to select one or the other, or either or both.
Mr. Chair, since Mr. Redpath had said that they are 2 unrelated topics, if you agree it's divisible upon the demand of one member and doesn't require a vote. When you have two unrelated items that's divisible upon the demand of one member. That's up to you.
I would call it a vote because in certain circumstances, yes, like if it was two separate elections, if it gets into, there's some parliamentary
Just let you know.
definitions there. So we'll take it to a vote. Is there any discussion on dividing the question?
It's dividing the
Dividing the question in the middle.
I don't recall.
Does anyone wish to debate?
I know.
I don't wish to debate, but I would love to say something.
I'll call the question if it is. If it's
I
debatable.
appreciate the remarks.
Hold on. Real quick. Before we get it.
Stop.
It's not debatable. Just a double check. What's the,
I wish I got an airport.
These are the questions that are not debatable.
No, it's just here. Price you're paying.
all right,
Might as
so,
well.
we'll go right to a vote to divide the question. Raise your hand if you wish to divide the question. Those who wish not to divide the question. All right, motion passes, so we are to divide the question. So we will, I don't.
I have questions now.
Any motion? Or,
Yeah, I have questions.
So we'll go ahead and vote on the first portion, which is the portion for qualifications.
I move to extend discussion
By how many minutes?
by 5 minutes.
We can't extend discussion because we're not at the ended time of this. It's 30 minutes for all nine.
We have 8 minutes. That's up.
Okay, pardon me.
We're
I'll
gonna
let you
have
know
to-
in 8 minutes. I wish to continue
Then
discussion.
Mr. Redpath.
I'm sorry, am I being recognized?
I think he had his hand up first.
Yeah, just quickly, we're talking about imposing qualifications. Are we going to then elaborate on those qualifications? Because it seems nebulous right now. I get the point about having qualified for one, well, virtually everybody. I just want to know what the qualifications are so that we can hear them.
I think
My question's out there. Love response.
Because Mr. Chatter, you were on the board for the
It's blue and white.
Goes through before the-
Now it's
Yeah, it starts all over.
So my question is, we're putting it in place the requirement for qualifications. That's a great idea on all boards. I just want to know what those qualifications are.
The qualifications are on the
Experienced and
screen.
well
But
versed.
that's not, that's still corporate buzzwords. They're corporate buzzwords. I don't even, I'm not going to hate these words. They're not, if you're going to ask for qualifications, in my mind, for something as detailed as this, there needs to be specific. I mean, what qualifies you? It's not good enough to say,
Mr. Chair, I have a point of order. Can we have the secretary read the EPCC? It is literally on, it'll satisfy Mr. Ford's
Mr.
question.
Chair, this member is abusing the point of order. That wasn't a point of order. He keeps using it to interrupt the members and get his own remarks in.
Well, to answer your question, Mr. Ford, I think that anybody who meets that criteria, they would just have to let the LNC know that, hey, I meet this criteria as far as, that would be my rule.
so to respond briefly, now, you got that seat before. When you say well versed in the involvement into our business plans, why?
Yeah.
You know, listen, you run a pyramid scheme or well versed in the system. I mean,
Yeah,
it's so
Point
vague.
to qualifications.
Yeah.
Running bars, you
I move to amend this motion to read the EPCC should be comprised of, right, and it's that shall only.
Well, that defeats the purpose of the motion.
I mean, you're welcome to make that motion. I'm just saying that defeats the purpose.
Should be strike shall only and insert should.
Bill, would you be willing to consider?
So strike,
Shall
to
only
should.
and insert should.
Should be. Is there a second?
Yes.
All right, there's a motion second.
I mean, I don't have a problem with this as a recommendation, but otherwise it's too nebulous. It's how, I mean, and by the way, what if nobody on this committee fills the bill?
And then we have a deeper problem if that's the case. My God, Bill, come on.
Please let him speak. I want to hear his answer.
I'm serious, it's too nebulous. I think that I understand the point, but how is this gonna be enforced? Seriously, how is this going to be enforced by the nomination or by the membership at large, because this is all highly debatable.
It wouldn't be the membership, it would be the LNC. So you
I
submit.
have spoken. Chatterton, Martin,
It was point of order, and then I have comments and discussion on the matter. The point of order, it's been assured today that we can, count these policies, and yet we've had an individual member of this board who's repeatedly interrupted discussion with other members. I think that this is demonstrative of the problems of trust, but furthermore, I think there needs to be some.
You have a dinner to get to.
Case in point, as demonstrated here, that there should be some action taken at some point, and this has been going on not just in today's meeting, but for months. I would like for there to be more significant action to address the specific member who continually violates the basic rules of the meeting, the forum, and recognize the speak.
I wish we could, Mr. Chair, but we didn't pass those policy manuals.
Those are not necessary to have amended policy manuals that exist under our existing parliamentary procedures, and I would request the chair to take some action at this time.
I have a point of personal privilege that somebody buy the secretary booze after this for all these points of order and crosstalk, please.
Mr. Martin.
I wanted to just speak to what Bill was saying a minute ago. First of all, I really appreciate your idea there. And I also appreciate what everyone has said. I know you guys think I'm against you on this. Believe it or not, I could be a yes vote on this. My suggestion, though, would be, and maybe this would be really for you to consider, Bill. Or I'm sorry, Mr. Redpath, I shouldn't call you Bill. We should say the LNC now use diligence to ensure that the members of the EPCC are qualified at the time of their election. And that we should try to probably maybe look at some specific kinds of qualifications that are a little more objective. Experience is fine with me. I'm actually okay with the list there. The thing that scares me is how it's worded. It'll supersede Roner, right? So it should be an instruction for ourselves to pick qualified people.
If I could, a point of order, I would request that Mr. Malagon be called to order and his continued interruptions do not cease for the rest of the meeting that I did the presentation at that time.
I've called the order several times. We have a weekly slideshow every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, or I'm just like, all right, this is.
If I could then go into commentary on the motion. So I would speak in support of Mr. Redpath's motion. I think that we've seen the politicized application rules. Mr. Malagon has already stated his desire to reduce the committee size and hold a vote based on these.
That is not what I said.
And then I think that this revision to change it to should is a guideline to the LNC to consider when voting on filling vacancies. Make sure that those cannot be used as cause for approval. But put it as, I think, an appropriate advisory guidance to LNC members when choosing who to vote for filling those vacancies. So I think that does address some of the concerns that I raised about the amendment, and I support that.
Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, so I want to speak to a couple of things. By amending the motion to say should as opposed to shall, there's zero teeth there. It removes the fact that you can still put someone on the committee who has no idea what they're doing, has no idea of key performance indicators or performance improvement plans for people who have no idea, who are messing up.
Mr. Chair, I apologize for interrupting, but point of order, we have a member that's distracting the gallery and distracting me from the member. I would like to hear what Mr. Johnson is saying. Sorry.
Sure. The second point that I wanted to make is it's been questioned, how do we know if they're qualified? People who apply for the committee, they give their qualifications in their application. People who are nominated can speak to their qualifications or speak to their nomination when they accept the nomination. And it's clear that anybody who's had any management experience, director experience, they would be happy to inform the LNC of that information prior to the vote being taken to fulfill the committee. I realize I'm just an alternate, but I do want to get that on the record for those who have questions as to whether or not the should or the shall should remain, or what constitutes qualification, or how do we know? Thank you.
Mr. Thompson? So I understand Bill's point about a hypothetical situation where we have no qualified candidates. But at such a time, I would hope that we could then amend, we would be in such a dire situation, we could then amend the policy. So I do support it as written. I didn't because I didn't want to, for people to feel they were forced, but I do support both parts. And I guess this is a point of parliamentary inquiry. When someone makes a point of order, it is not just waiting for the law. It's not supposed to. If you do a point of order, it's because there is a rules violation that you're bringing up. Correct.
They're supposed to be, yeah, I mean, when you have a point of order, it's interruptible, but oftentimes when you hear a point of parliamentary inquiry, for instance, it's like, the room is a little hot, would you turn on the AC, or, can you speak up, something like that. So that's a point of parliamentary inquiry. A point of order, a point of parliamentary, point of personal privilege. No, a point, yeah. Parliamentary inquiry would be, more so, all right, what is the specific, something that actually has to do with the parliamentary procedure of how we're going to proceed, where a point of order it's a little more nebulous, but oftentimes it's
a breach of the rules.
Yeah.
But a point of order wouldn't be, he said something about me.
Correct, it's not to be, it's not,
Let me violation of the rule.
correct. Okay. That's why we have discussion. That's why, what we need to do to make sure is that everybody has their turn to speak. And we have discussion that's pointed towards the chair, and so on and so forth. So, is there a motion to extend time?
I move to extend the time by 30 minutes.
Motion second. Any objection?
I object.
Objection to
For the whole
extending time.
time. For all,
We don't know.
It's for all the
30 minutes
motions.
for one motion.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry, 30 minutes for everything?
See, those 9 motions were allotted a block of time.
And we're-
Out of
they
the
were
whole
very
block,
common
just
sense.
on-
Now we are at minutes for one motion.
It was ambitious.
Is it in order?
For a call a question.
Is it in order to move to table this to workshop it, the whole 9 of them?
Oh my God.
I mean,
I moved to move this into the workshop.
these are, hold on, before you get
Motion's
made and seconded.
It's already been a motion, it's already been a motion to amend and second.
We got a second.
We are never going to become a functioning.
You're not functioning.
We're never going to make this move.
I think if we change it to development receipt shall be delivered.
No, it's not debatable.
I know.
So we're going to extend time for 30 minutes. We have an objection. We'll go still. All in favor of extending time or, wait, does anybody want to amend the extension?
How many thousands of dollars to hire a person?
No, it's not, no discussion.
I would extend for 10 minutes on question number 1 only, and then move to recess until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. That's my second.
Okay, there's an amendment.
That's a
Is there second?
substitute.
Again, to extend for 10 minutes to deal with question number 1 only, and then to recess until 9 a.m. tomorrow.
Is there a second?
So I would only, I would only second Mr. Redpath's motion if everyone reads the bloody fucking PM amendments, because this is getting so absurd. 30 minutes was not, it was ambitious to Mr. Thompson's point, but these are so easy. This is something, it's this common sense stuff. We have been here for 30 minutes on one. We are not a functioning organization. This is embarrassing.
Let's move on to the amendment, to the substitute motion. All in favor of the Redpath substitute motion, raise your hand. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All opposed? All right, motion passes. So we are going to have except for 10 minutes, and then we're going to. So who's up next? You guys agree with this? Oh, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so in terms of qualifications, I'm gonna note that it says to be added after the first paragraph. Can you scroll down, Madam Secretary?
You mean up here?
Yes, the EPCC shall develop documents, procedures, and guidelines for the effective administration, supervision, and development of staff, including but not limited to job descriptions, compensation ranges, hiring, training, performance reviews, promotion, progressive discipline and termination. The LNC may supersede any such documents. Shall review the document all contracts for staff. The qualifications are related to those items that are the point of the committee. So I don't know why this is unclear. I don't know why we need more detail, but you gotta look at the whole part.
pass a law saying that we should all
Yeah,
be rock stars.
only this, when I call upon you, Mr. Ford, and then Mr. Cheddar.
Two quick points. Your suggestion that all comments be directed to the chair is an excellent one, and will eliminate a lot of the.
And it's in Roberts.
Yes.
I'm the Roberts expert. The second point being, Ms. Yanuskowicz's point is certainly on point. My only concern is the minute you introduce, if you will, to a question that someone has to be qualified, I believe you have to go to near extraordinary lengths, or at some length, to describe what is qualified. And saying someone's an expert in business development is incredibly, I guess the word today is nebulous.
Mr. Cheddar.
This is partially kind of a clarification, or at least to state my understanding regarding the proposed amendment. When I think my support for the amendment to should was on the basis of my interpretation of shall versus should language in such a document, in that a shall is a requirement and a must, basically. And essentially these items here, I think that shall enables it to be used to go after current members at the whims of the future body. And that I think is something we should seek to avoid. I also share the concerns, this is just clarified by so I guess that's the angle I'm coming from. This is all ultimately, as we've discussed, at the decision and discretion of LNC voters, as pointed out. And a should statement says this is what you ought to consider in making this. A shall statement says that these are objective qualities that must be considered, and these are not objective qualities. It is subjective as to whether or not someone is an expert in these matters. What does it mean to be an expert in key performance indicators? These are things that people use in all forms of jobs. It's the subjective evaluation of the body to look at these factors and weigh who they want to be on this body. And I think a should statement codifies that and say this is guidance for the LNC to consider when they. I don't know.
Mr. Thompson. I would hope that the LNC previously considered it should, that we appoint qualified people to the committee, right? That's how it already was. Anyway, we're still on the shall should, right? So in the interest of completing this within the remaining time, may I not move to call the question, but please request that we stop today? Mr. Martin.
I have something just really simple. If we say the LNC shall ensure that the EPCC is comprised of qualified members, right? That would probably solve the problem where it would still have teeth and be a requirement of the LNC to do so, but would not necessarily authorize the removal of any current members.
And just to be clear, these are, as chair, I've already ruled you, hold me to this, otherwise I'll be a huge asshole. I am gonna make sure that whenever this passes, that the current EPCC should not be removed.
Respectfully, Mr. Chair, you said you weren't gonna fire Michael Heist too.
That's not, Mr. Chair, point of parliamentary inquiry.
That was on YouTube as well.
Point of parliamentary inquiry. Can any member of any committee be removed by the LNC at any time? Okay, thank you.
Any further debate? So we're going to call the question.
That's a good point.
Any objection to calling the question? Hearing no debate, we'll go ahead and move to vote on the motion.
So what are we voting on?
We're voting the shall should, or no?
Yeah.
Shall should.
The amendment.
So
we're just on amendment, right?
Yeah, we're just on
So
the
this is
amendment.
just the amendment, so we're
Wait,
voting on
there was a
changing
substitute motion.
shall only to should be. So really just strike the shall only, then it should be.
Point of inquiry. So we have 3 votes up. We have the shall should, and we'll vote on paragraph 1, and then vote on paragraph 2, which is a separate motion.
So and I vote does what for this? This is I is to accept should.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yes, it should.
So, wait, yes, second. Did you say?
I'll second moving on previous
Yes.
questions.
Yeah.
I ask no objections. So we have, moving all previous questions, and then.
I'll second Mr.
We have a
McGee's
second.
motion to move all previous questions.
Is there any objection to that? All right, if not, then we're going to vote on the amendment first. All in favor of the motion to change shall only to should, raise your hand.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, it passed, and so motion passes. All right, now we're on the.
Would it be in order to just withdraw this motion because it
Yeah.
defeats the purpose of the entire motion?
It's been seconded.
It belongs to the body.
I'm
You
asking
can
the
vote
chair,
against it.
as a point of parliamentary inquiry, that the motion is moot now.
You
May I
can vote
just
against
remove
it. We just get it over.
I'm speaking to the chair at the moment. Mr. Chair, may I just remove, the motion is moot now.
Belongs to the body.
Just vote.
All in favor of the motion, please say, or please raise your hand. This is the first paragraph.
As
The
amended.
first paragraph,
As amended.
As amended.
So the EPCC should be comprised, and that would be that paragraph. All right, so, raise your hand if you'd like to see that passed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All opposed? Motion passes. All right,
Mr. Chair, I move to adjourn.
We're in the middle of the question.
Doesn't matter, it's always in order to move to adjourn.
No, it would just be adjourned for the day.
I'm sorry, adjourn for the day.
There's already a motion to adjourn on the table. After this.
No, adjourn is the highest. It's the highest rank, outranks that. When we come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so, all in favor of adjournment, raise your hand. All opposed? Motion fails. Next is the following portion of the EPCC policy manual language, which is conditions on the screen, underneath the big block of text.
Yeah.
We're gonna vote on that. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? Motion passes. All right. Approval for the policy manual.
Yes, yeah.
Abstentions.
Yeah, they were each, the yeses were each 2 times.
Have a good day.
And next is recess till tomorrow, 9 a.m. So recess till tomorrow. Oh, real quick, XCOM meet at 8:45. See everybody. All right.
Come here.